Hello everyone, and welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of UiPath Fusion. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, along with Dave Vellante, my co-host and analyst. We've got two guests for this next segment, both from Blue Cross. I'd like to welcome Gary Grena, Business Owner, Intelligent Document Processing and Automation, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina.
Yes.
Welcome, Gary. And Dan Deschamps, VP Experience Platform, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
show.
you for having us.
So, before we get started, I'd love to have you both talk a little bit about your role, but also, and what you do at your respective Blue Crosses, but also how Blue Cross Blue Shield really operates. Let's start with you, Gary, and talk a little bit about your role first.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Gary Grena again, and I run a small group of automation consultants. So what we do is we work with, all across our enterprise, to work with executive process owners and to kind of direct all the power of all these really powerful automation tools to make sure that we're supporting our executives in their cost reduction and efficiency goals. So, our IT partners work really hard, and we want to make sure that we're making an impact on all the work, because a automation that could save $700 or $700,000, usually it takes about the same amount of work.
Yeah.
And that's what our automation consultants do.
Okay, and Dan, and also just level set about how Blue Cross Blue Shield works.
Yeah, so I'm probably the best person to talk about that because I've been in healthcare for a little over a year, so I have a beginner's sort of vision on this. But, so first of all, Dan Deschamps, I work at AZ Blue, and I'm in the IT space. Right, so my primary responsibilities are around all of the websites, all of the portals, kind of the things you experience when you work with us. So if you're a member or like a doctor, a provider, a hospital, if you're an employer who is taking care of insurance for your employees, or even a broker who's selling plans, my job is kind of integrate with those guys, bring them in a digital experience, and then as part of that, I have other engineering functions, which includes the UiPath and sort of automation capabilities that UiPath bring in. If I was to describe healthcare, and again, the best person to possibly do this, what I always say is, and they get mad at me, I'm like, it's not that complicated. So step one is, we enroll members in some sort of healthcare plan that says what's covered and what's not covered. Step two is help them find a provider, help them find a doctor. Step three is, they go see that doctor and the doctor submits a claim to us. Now, from there, we either pay the claim or don't pay the claim based on the enrollments that are there, very simple. And then sort of the last step in the process is send out all of the correspondence related to that. It might be an email about the visit you just had. It might be a reason why maybe a claim wasn't paid. And again, that doesn't just go to members, that could go to providers. But if you really narrow it down, that's the simplicity of it, is kind of those 4 steps. And then if you think about claims, because I know we're going to talk about it in a minute, the volume that we're talking about, when you're talking about like 36 million claims coming in, even a 1% sort of fallout rate is massive volumes that do not get processed automatically, that now a human has to go in and kind of look at those. And that's where automation can really help, things like that.
So you've got systems that serve your sellers, the agents, not agentic agents,
yes.
but agents.
Yeah, brokers.
You got member, onboarding, right, for plans. Yep. You got provider portals and systems, and then you got the crown jewels, which is the claim system.
Yep.
So, where are you applying agentic? Is it all of them? Where did you start? Did you purposely avoid, like Daniel Deschamps is like, think big, which is say, go after the claim system, but you might say, wait a minute.
You're right.
So where do you start?
I'll let you take that one, Gary.
Yeah, what's, just backing up a little bit, what's one thing that's really great about the Blue Cross Association is Dan and I both work for not-for-profits. So we're fully taxed not-for-profits. Our goal at Blue Cross NC is to improve the health and well-being of all our members, of all North Carolinians. So what I love about the work that I do is any improvement we make, any efficiencies, well, that goes to directly reducing the costs that our members have to pay for health insurance. Now, we all know that health insurance is very expensive. So what my team does is we always look for financial benefit, because we know that any kind of benefit we find will go directly to the price, reducing the price that our members have to pay. So where can you find the most financial benefit, right? Well, we're a payer. And high 80, 85% of all our costs have to do with paying our medical expense. So first off, we have to direct it towards our highest cost, our reducing the medical expense. So in our claim space, one place we do a lot of work is reviewing high dollar medical claims. And these are $100,000 claims. And you think about that, well first off, we want to make sure that we're paying by the policy, but at the same time, think about it, a $100,000 claim, the person that's behind that claim, they're experiencing one of the worst times of their life.
Yeah.
And what we can do is make sure that we're processing that claim very quickly, fairly, within the policy, but to help them get through this very difficult part of their life. So reducing the cost that our members have to pay, but also doing things quickly to help our members.
Yeah, and then Dave, I would add, so if you think, to your question, if you think about, we have what we call a placemat that kind of shows all the functions in healthcare. There's nothing that we're really staying away from. To his point, we're looking for automation opportunities in all of that. The one thing I would say that we're sort of not doing is making decisions using specifically autonomous or automation. We always want a human in the loop that's deciding, is this procedure medically necessary? A human in the loop to decide those kind of tough choices. We're not automating that, but what will happen is, again, you'll get 50,000 claims that fall out because the other day I was in the doctor's office and I filled out my form, and when they called me, they were saying, David? Well, my name is Dan, and I wrote Daniel, but my handwriting is terrible, so then they coded me in their system as David. This is where a robot can help. It'll come in, or an agent can help. It'll clean that up and be like, they also took my driver's license, they also took my health ID card, but they didn't look at those. They looked at my paper, terrible handwriting when they keyed me in. Well, an agent could look at the image of my license and very quickly fix that, and now when that claim comes through, it won't fall into a work basket because the data is correct. If that name is wrong, we'll immediately throw it into a work basket saying that could be fraud, check it.
Now when you guys agentify, are you building on top of existing automations? I'm sure some, but is it heavy RPA, light RPA? What's there today that's the foundation for you?
I think we're looking at, we've been in the robotic process automation. I wrote the first investment request back in 2017. So what I'm seeing is, okay, we started off with RPA, but now we can add 3 parts. Okay, you have the RPA, which is really, really good. You can really trust deterministic, programmed bot to do exactly what you want it to do. But now you add 2 more things. The power of the generative AI that can go out there and really quickly read documents, but then link that up with the human in the loop. We have a policy that every decision, there will not be a generative AI decision without a human checking over it. So you add, instead of just having one element, the deterministic robot, now you're not replacing that, you're adding the power of the generative AI with the human in the loop. Those 3 things together are really going to allow us to do end-to-end process automation.
Yeah. And that agent is like a research assistant? What is the role of that agent?
It could be. So back to the foundation, at AZ Blue, we have over 500 robotic processes. In the last 3 years, they've saved over 900,000 man-hours of work. So next year, we're looking forward to hitting 1 million man-hours saved with the robotic process. But a lot of that robots can't do. If it is, he used the right word, if it's deterministic, there's a code that says it's the wrong provider ID, the robot can go look up the right one, update it, reprocess. But sometimes we don't really know what is wrong. Or the big one that we're all working on is medical claim summarization. A claim might come in with 1,000 sheets of paper, including x-ray images, CAT scans, all this data, and we need someone to kind of review that, like a medical officer to review it. And when they do that, that takes a lot of time, takes about an hour per. Well, what we can do is with summarization, object recognition, and the LLM, right, the language model, it'll summarize what those 1,000 sheets are about, and then it sort of creates references, referential links. So now if you're a nurse practitioner reviewing a claim, instead of reading 1,000 sheets, you read a summary and you say, I want to know more about that hernia surgery in 1999, click a button and it'll pull up an image of that claim from 23 years ago that was submitted but they don't have to dig through 1,000 pages. So it kind of like, it just shortens the cycle to consume all of that content. So is it like an assistive agent? Absolutely. I think of it, it's like a law clerk who does all the research, gets all the summarizations, and then gives that to the lawyer to sort of adjudicate. It sort of helps do that function up front.
So it certainly helps the the worker do their job more efficiently and effectively and also compassionately too. How does it affect the customer, the end? I mean, as you said, every dollar you can save goes directly back into their pocket.
Yep.
And often at a time where they're experiencing some kind of medical distress. So this really is important, but what are you hearing from customers? Because I think a lot of people are nervous of, wait, a robot is reading my medical history?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
You know, one thing we were talking about this earlier, if we do this right, we can free up our people's time to be more empathetic and to listen more. Think about the last time you were on a phone call with any kind of customer service. There's a lot of downtime, a lot of white space in there because they're typing on a computer, right? But you imagine if now all of a sudden we have an agent, they're working with that customer service rep, and she can actually, the agent is actually pulling up the information for her, and she can spend that time that she used to be typing into a computer.
Yeah.
Now she's actually listening to what you're saying and really understanding how she can help you. If we do this right, that's what we can do. You know, it's up to all of us to make sure that we're implementing this correctly so we can really help people.
Yeah, I would agree completely. So it's obviously the cost savings, million man hours, that doesn't get charged out in billable, so that's obvious. But the other parts are, it kind of frees up, if there's going to be an experience with a customer service representative, they can definitely listen, be more empathetic, spend time on the more sort of coordination of care, sort of the thinking ahead. I don't want to say concierge experience, but they can definitely be more engaged because they're not doing the rote work of, well, let me go pull this up, let me go look this up. All those things can kind of be generated and summarized up front. The other thing that I think it'll do is speed things up, right? So if like claims, it's sort of like, we have 30 to 60 days to pay a claim, and most members don't care. They're like, they'll take care of it. It's only if it gets denied. You find out like 60 days later, why did that? Yeah. But upfront, members don't really care, but there are a lot of things they do care about upfront, such as, am I eligible for a particular procedure? Or if there's a prior authorization required to get a particular procedure, there might be a 2-week. If we can slash that time down and be like, you have your prior auth in your hand in 48 hours, things like that I think are where members are going to feel the benefit, and providers, right? Because they just want to offer the care, and we all get kind of stuck in limbo of, if only we didn't have 100,000 of these coming in every week, we could go faster. So help to shorten those cycles.
So it's, as you said, the promise is that AI will make us more human.
And it's just up to us to make sure we implement it right.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
So in North Carolina and Arizona, you don't have an incentive to raise your stock price and get your valuation up.
Yeah, no.
So, and you've been, I'm sure, doing more with less year after year after year, becoming more efficient. But I'm also probably correct in that healthcare costs haven't declined in Arizona. And okay, so that means it's not your fault. You're doing your part. Now, you can have a bigger impact with Agentic, it sounds like.
Yep.
So that could decelerate the pace of increase, I guess, slow down the growth, right? So that's kind of where you're at today, and that could maybe go faster.
Yeah.
And then the other parts.
And keep in mind, it's two-sided. Providers, they're also doing this.
That's what I was going to say. The other parts of the blame pie are going.
So pretty soon they are. So overall, I think healthcare has a lot of room for efficiency improvement. As someone from outside of healthcare, I'm always, every day, I'm like, wow, that's the process. Like, it feels like the processes are still 1986, and we've just sort of automated those. And so now we have a chance to really rethink the process. UiPath yesterday, their CEO had one of my favorite quotes where he goes, just to be clear, it's the agent isn't the hero here. The process is. Get your process right, and then let the agents execute that process. I was like, that's spot on, that's exactly right. Yep. So I think we are entering kind of a new era where we can look at just healthcare processes and
just think of all the,
tighten it up.
As we look at the cost pressures, just think of how many people in a doctor's office are typing into a computer, and then there's people at the payer who are reading that stuff. Boy, if we could go across that divide and start eliminating a lot of that administrative work, those are ways that we can actually look to at least reduce the increase in spend. There's just too many people who are doing non-clinical work associated in American healthcare. And how can we reduce that? So at least the people who are in there, they're actually caring for patients. They're actually working to improve the healthcare of the people that they're serving.
So how far can your automations go? Because you're right, you walk into a typical general practitioner's office,
Yeah.
and that poor soul is just trying to make a living,
Oh yeah.
right? He's
And
making
they
it
work all day, and then at the end of the day, they sit down at the computer and start
Right.
hammering out claims and.
Right, they're trying to
Yeah.
scratch out, to feed their family. It's not like, they're living in
Yeah.
big mansions. And so, how much of your sort of good work can trickle down into that part of the system?
We're going to have to see. Right now we're enterprise-wide, but you're right, if we're going to do more end-to-end work, we're going to have to go to the providers.
Yeah.
And so we could start with the large providers in our area and link with them. But that's
So-
going to be the next frontier.
Yeah,
So
and
they
I
might-
think
go
one of
ahead.
the opportunities is this idea of like straight through processing. I used to work
Yeah.
in banking, right?
Right,
So they were all
sure.
about like straight through processing. And so if, let's say you're a provider, I talked to my provider about this. Once he found out I was at Blue, it was like, he's got 90 minutes of telling me how to fix, payer space. But at the end of the day, he's got a lot of paperwork to do, and some of that might be claims that got denied. We go back to them and say, can you submit more information? Now they got to submit more information. So I think if you think about cleaning up the back and forth a little bit and more straight through processing, if we can reduce the amount of rework he has to do by 20 to 25%, that's how it kind of gets upstream, to your point.
So, is there a banking analogy? Because you're from banking,
Yeah.
you know what's happening in the financial system
Yep.
with things like blockchain and crypto, and
Yeah.
and the rails have to be upgraded and changed.
Yep.
Because they can't accommodate, the existing rails can't accommodate. Is there an analog in terms of the plumbing in healthcare, like the rails, or is it much more sort of bespoke because you've got the providers, you've got the big hospital
I mean,
networks?
I think it can, let me give you an example of like one of these things where I'm like, wow, we're just now doing this, is just standardization in healthcare of like data formatting. So I was in banking for a very large bank, Wells Fargo, so everybody's heard of that. And I was in the payment space, and it was like 2011, and we were moving to an ISO standard, ISO 222, like everybody get on this canonical. When I send you a payment, it was like the early days of what we now call Zelle or Venmo
Right.
or PayPal, kind of early days of that, get everybody on a standard so we can all just pass money around. Like healthcare is just now getting serious about that. They have these new FHIR protocols, and so we all got to move to these. And I was very surprised when I came into healthcare that they're just now getting serious about that. So I think there are some constraints that are bespoke, to use your word, where, different payers, like when we integrate with different clearing houses, they might not, there are EDI, standard transactions, don't get me wrong, but there's still like enrollments. Let's say you're going to enroll your company, theCUBE, this company, or any company, UiPath. One company might decide to send us their census, all of their employees, on a spreadsheet, and we got to ingest that. And then somebody else is like, no, we use Workday, all of our people in Workday, we can generate an 834 EDI extract, and they send us that. So sometimes it's super custom, sometimes it's, oh good, they're sending an 834, that's better. And we have to handle all of it. We take all comers, so.
To your earlier point, you are seeing some things speed up in healthcare, like blood work now.
Yeah.
You can see almost real time. Now, of course, when you get it, you try to interpret it, and it's this big mess, and there's individual files,
Yeah.
but at least it's there.
Yeah.
And it used to take weeks. Okay, so there's little pockets.
Yep.
And hopefully that data model comes together so that
Yeah.
it can be operated on much more efficiently.
Yep, 100%.
Seems
So-
like, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, as we're wrapping up here, I'd like to hear about your learnings from this and the conversations that you're having here at UiPath Fusion and teaching others about what you did to encourage adoption from leadership on down, and what you would recommend for some lessons and some early playbook that you would talk to your peers about. Why don't you start with you, Gary?
Yeah, I'd give a plug for UiPath. Our goals are always aligned with UiPath. They sell licenses, and the only way that they can sell more licenses is if we're successful. As we become more successful, do more robotics, do more volume, well, guess what? They get to come along with us. So I couldn't be more impressed with what UiPath does from an account executive standpoint. I constantly am bringing in UiPath folks to meet with executives to do art of the possible meetings. And they'll come out and they will say, hey, this is what we're working all across the country in your specific area, membership, or special investigations unit, customer service. This is what we're doing in other parts of the country with our software. Would you like to do that in this area? And we get a lot of, I think it's one of the best practices, we get a lot of engagement and then just building up the portfolios with that help from UiPath. It really makes a difference, the support that we get from them.
Yeah.
And I use them constantly.
I love the art of the possible.
Art of the possible.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, so I think like if we're talking about a playbook, right? Like, so I think like the last, the red zone score a touchdown is just the development of either the agent or the robotic, we got that. I think a lot of the conversations that I've been having are kind of upfield of that, right? How do we get to the red zone? And so one of the things I think we talk about a lot is, especially with Agentic, is what does your governance plan look like? What does your strategy look like? And like, how are you not going to just burn 1 million tokens calling LLMs and suddenly like this costs more than it was worth, right? So there's a lot of conversations about that. And then I think the next one that's been very, like, at AZ Blue we already do it this way, so I didn't know it was weird, but like, I feel like our teams, our UiPath development teams, they're really embedded with the business, right? So I always say we're in the streets. We're talking to the enrollments teams, we're talking to the claims teams, the care management teams, the pharmacy teams. Like, they know us on a first name basis, right? Our development lead, his name is JP. They know JP, they all know him. I am him all the time. Hey, can you come look at this process? So we're sort of in the streets, and I think that's the playbook, and it goes back to the statement of the process is the real hero. You have to go into the business, you have to understand their process, then we map that process for them. This could be something that hasn't been mapped in 10 years. They've just all been working on sort of muscle memory, and then we draw a picture of it, and we say, you could tweak this process a little bit, it would make us automate it a little easier, and then suddenly they realize there's 3 steps they didn't even need. So we kind of do that. So I'd say get into the streets, and then make sure your governance is tight, and then just standard software development lifecycle.
Are you guys, off the cuff question, are you guys doing all this stuff in the cloud? Are you doing it on-prem? Is it a hybrid?
Great question.
We're on the cloud.
All on the cloud. Your claim system as well?
No, the UiPath stuff's on the cloud.
Yeah, UiPath stuff for sure. But what about like your crown jewels? You use stuff on-prem. Are you, it's not UiPath related, but are you bringing AI to those on-prem systems? Or, are you building your own on-prem stacks? Because there's kind of, the cloud's got one of everything.
Yeah,
but
so we're a hybrid shop. Yeah. So we have a lot of stuff on Azure, and then a lot of our crown jewels, to your point, like other vendors we work with, Salesforce, our adjudication platform is HRP, we have ServiceNow, that is all up in the cloud.
Yeah.
And then if you think about, like, I run all the digital portals, that's kind of a mix. So a lot of it is still on-prem, so I'll have my Sitecore content management system is right here on-prem, and then you're like, well, are you bringing AI to that? Yes, but what we'll do is kind of a hybrid where if you click a little, we have this cool little icon called Grena, so shout out to the marketing team and Archana and her team. So they have this little sun, it looks like it's Phoenix, right? So you click the sun, you can start chatting with it. Well, that's actually connecting to a cloud instance, and then you could ask it questions, very narrative driven, but the minute you're like, I want to talk to somebody else, you push a button, and now it pops into our phone bank, and now that whole piece is cloud. So it is sort of like pieces of cloud that we're pushing out through on-prem systems, and it's component based, so you can do this quite easily.
But you're not buying GPUs at this point.
No. I mean,
installing them on-prem.
No, for the most part, it's a good question.
Do you ever see doing that?
I don't think so. Like, I don't think we're going to be in the business, I don't know about you, but we're small, right? Like, we're just Arizona. So we're not going to build our own LLMs, but what we are doing is we're setting up like an AI gateway, and with that gateway, we'll connect to multiple LLMs that are going to burn a bunch of GPUs, and they're going to be like the usual players, like we're working with Anthropic, we're working with OpenAI, we're working with Microsoft, we have all of them. So I'll have a gateway that, based on the type of request that comes in, will get routed to the best LLM model. Some cost more than others, so we don't want all the traffic going to the expensive one. We can also put semantic caching on the front end, so we're not burning tokens and GPUs every time. shout out to my daughter Reese, who's always like, Dad, you're going to kill the planet with AI
Right.
because
Oh,
of the
my
energy
kids
consumption.
too.
Yeah, right? She tells me every day. She'll ask me a question. I'll be like, ask Gemini. She's like, no, I don't want to
You
kill
know how
Tr-"
much water that uses?
Exactly, I get it all the time. She's 17. So we can semantically cache, reduce the tokenization utilization on the back end of those LLMs. So I don't think, no, we're not going to go there. We'll partner where it makes sense, and then we'll try to put cool sort of gateways in front of that to optimize spend, because that's the real trick, right?
Thank you for that, I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And that's
Hopefully
one
that
of
makes
our
sense.
challenges, right? As a health insurance, we always have to make sure that we're protecting our members' PHI.
Oh yeah,
And that
100%.
always adds a whole bunch of complexity. So
That's a great call, because
Yeah.
in this gateway that we can also filter that, and we do. It can't get in, so no LLM will ever see it. And I saw a cool demo today that UiPath did where there was like 3 names, 3 different sort of people, and it submitted them, but it basically just takes your name out and says you're member 1, and the next name is member 2, and the next name is member 3, and then because we don't need the LLM to know who those people are.
Right, yeah.
Right.
We just need to know what they just say, and then it comes back and says, okay, member 1 is asking for claim status on this claim, and then we reinsert member name when
Map
it
it in the
comes
back
back.
end, yeah.
So you don't need to even send that out, but you do need those gateways to do that filtering for you. And UiPath also, just at their development design layer, you can also turn off PHI, so it's pretty slick.
And one of the things I'm most excited about is UiPath is creating accelerators and pre-built
Oh, yeah.
agents. So how we process a claim and the work we do in North Carolina is so much, it's not that much different than what they do in Arizona. And so instead of us having to build from scratch a claims processing or medical records review bot, they're actually writing these pre-built accelerators. And I'm really excited next year to take those to the executives of those areas and say, hey, look, this is right off the shelf. Would you like to click this in? And I think that's how we're going to get a lot of acceleration in this space.
Yeah.
They've already created them.
Exciting future.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we're the
Gary-
same. We've got like a list, and then we saw the accelerators, and I was like, I think my priorities just shifted. Like, I'll just take those because
A new
they're ready.
to-do list on
Yeah.
Monday. Well, Gary and Dan, thank you both so much for
thank
coming
you.
on the
Thanks,
show.
you guys, great
yeah.
conversation,
Good to meet you.
appreciate it.
I'm Rebecca
Thank you.
Knight for Dave Vellante. Stay tuned for more of theCUBE's live coverage of UiPath Fusion. You're watching theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.